Perfect.
Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and tonight on Living Mythology, I'm proud to bring you John Carl Pepe's The Pep Talk, one of our legacy shows. Greeting, John. How are you?
Very, very good, Hercules. How are you?
I'm doing phenomenal, and I'm looking forward to your conversation.
Well, Happy New Year, Hercules. And this is going to be exciting as we move forward with this next year on Mount Olympus Podcast Network. As we expand and do the video thing, it was perfect timing. You didn't know what our topic tonight was going to be, but this is a great way to kick this off.
Well, I look forward to it as always, and just holler if you need me. I'll be here.
All right. Excellent. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Pep Talk. This is January 5th, 2025, if you can believe it or not. Happy New Year, and welcome to this brand new version of the Pep Talk. As we have migrated over to Zoom, we now have a video component, which is very exciting. So I just, I think there might be some technical bugs as we go along, but we're going to figure it out. We're going to have a good time. So one of the great things about being video is we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, action figures. And I think anyone who knows me knows that I'm a big action figure nerd, and I have a lot of thoughts on the topic, and I really I'm excited to bring on my two guests tonight because they are also big action figure nerds. They have their collections are very curated, whereas mine is not. We're going to get into that a little bit, but they have different curations for different different styles. And then there's also some other interesting things about that. So we're gonna enough of my yakking. We're gonna get right into it. So I'm gonna go age before beauty, and I'm gonna first bring on Michael Spector. Michael Spector, an alum of Adelphi University, the Harvard of Long Island, as am I, as is our other guest. So you can see there's a little thread there, a little connecting thread. So let's bring out Michael. Looks like your screen name there is burnt out brushes,
which is
nice.
what the studio, which is what I'm in my studio. I'm a painter,
Right.
and so my wife named it this, and so that's what I run my Instagram as, which is just an online portfolio for my painted stuff, not even my action figures. That's just a indulgence that I have kind of taken to as of late.
Want to get into your painting too. Yeah,
That's
I
fine,
alluded
not
to
a
that
problem.
earlier. Yeah.
It's a worthwhile indulgence. I'll say that. I spent a lot of time looking at your page. Yeah.
And this is our other guest, folks. This is Ed Politis, also known as Mr. Skeezler. I want to get into that a little bit. I want to know what the origins of that is from. Ed, so both Ed and Michael are incredibly talented artists. When I met these guys, gosh, over 30 years now.
Yeah.
Well over 30 years now, I guess. They were both masters with the pencil, with the pen on the paper. They could definitely do things that I always attempted to do. So it was always just in awe and astonished with their talent. And yeah, so Ed went into graphic design. Worked for some very stellar publications earlier on, and branched out, but the artistic bent always stuck with both of you, even though I don't think you currently do much art on your day jobs. You guys, Mike, you're shaking your head. You actually
No, I'm a the technical title for what I am is a digital production manager. I work I work the back end of an online side of a magazine. So I'm just coding all day.
Coding all day. So yeah. So but you still put brush to miniatures
every night.
Brush to plastic every night.
Yes.
So yeah, that's something that you always did. Even besides your drawing, yeah, you would paint the miniatures, the Warhammer 40K Dungeons and Dragons type miniatures. So yeah, let's get into that. How did you get into that?
So I was, as you guys knew, when I was an art major back at school, and because I was always drawing, comic art, portrait art, that kind of stuff. And as the years have gone on, I drifted into digital for a while. And at the end of my first marriage, I ended up spending a lot of time at a local game store near where I was living. And it carried Warhammer. This is 23 years ago, 24. They carried Warhammer, they carried all that kind of stuff. And so you fell into it because you were there all the time. And so one of the things I started doing was miniature painting, which scratched the itch that, art would give you. So I do it nightly, about 2 hours a night, every night, as stress management. And that's where it kind of started. And it's just my thing. If and it even says it on my Instagram, I'm a husband, a father, and a painter. That's where, in that order. So it's very, part of who I am. So it's
Nice.
And so it's paid off. It's been a much enjoyed hobby for me.
Very good. Do you still do pen to paper at all? Or?
No,
No. So
nothing.
it is just the painting
Nope.
now.
I am a full-time painter, but it's not professional. Like I do it for my own stuff,
Yeah.
or I'm currently working on a project for charity, and that's a rare thing because normally if I'm doing work and it's not work, why am I doing it? Because it's
Right. Right.
So it's one of those deals.
So now, so you strictly do the 40K miniature painting.
Well, in this case, yes, I Warhammer, which in this case I do an earlier version. It's called Horse Heresy.
Okay, very,
But same deal. It's still Space Marines and brushes and glasses because we're all old and yeah.
But now you do not do any customizing on action figures. Do you ever
No.
repaint? You've never repainted an action figure?
No.
I see a trend behind you. We're gonna get into that. I'm gonna give you a hard time.
No. It's it'll be a fun conversation because Ed and I are similar in a lot of techniques, but we split in what we use it on.
Right. Well, Ed's gonna 3-up you right now because Ed uses his art talents to not only customize figures, taking an existing buck, which is the base body, and redoing it, making attachments, making tweaks, making certain things. He does repaints, right, on figures, which a really funny thing I want to talk about too. That happened recently. And you also have done ground up, just complete total rebuilds, making a completely different figure out of an existing figure, not just tweaking something. And then the 3-up right here now, you build full dioramas that specifically I'm thinking of your Sistine Chapel. We'll call it your Jabba's palace that doubles as a coffee table.
Yeah, and I have to thank my friends of the past 30 years for listening to me talk about this thing incessantly. But yeah, it really began as a bit of a labor of love, but also a sort of I used to live in New York, and obviously space is a premium, and when you have like a ton of action figures to display, you kind of need to get a little smarter about kind of the displays. So I decided that, all right, my Jabba's Palace alien, collection, there's just a ton of figures that need a place to go. And what better thing to do? It sounds so strange. What better thing to do than create a coffee table and just sink them all into it? I worked on it for a long time, and I sort of had it in a done state. And my wife kind of took a look at it, and there were sort of like these plaster sides, and you could look through holes and see inside. And she's like, the inside is really, really cool. It's really interesting. And she's like, but when you step back, and I stepped back with her, and she's like, it's pretty boring. And it was like one of those crushing bits of feedback that was so true. And I sort of wrapped it in bubble wrap, and then we moved to Massachusetts. And then when COVID kind of came about, I unwrapped it and I just decided to gut it and start over. And it was seriously one of the best things I had ever done. Because I'm really happy with it. You can check it out on my Instagram if you get a chance. It is, fully lit. The detail work was kind of, just I completely obsessed about, to the point where I'd be having conversations with people, nodding my head, and in the back of my head just kind of like planning the next part of the scene. So it's definitely a bit of that obsession. But to kind of go back to something we were talking about before with creativity. So I manage a UX practice at my my day job, and I also have clients that I work with for rebranding and things like that. So I do a fair bit of creative, but not for myself. And so I think one of the things that was most important to me when I started really kind of bringing this project back was like, I'm going to do something that really like is just for me. It doesn't matter, like a lot of details no one will ever see unless you have some sort of a neck that can crane in impossible directions, but I know it's there. And so it was really kind of something where it was like, I want to figure out all of the things that I'd never done lighting before. Now I can't get enough of it. I used a bunch of kind of paint techniques. I started working with like kind of 3D printed things, and it was really cool to kind of to kind of break in, but do something that was purely creative for myself rather than for someone else. And so, I guess to kind of echo a little bit of what Mike was saying, like, there's that, it's that sort of like that thing you need mentally, like when you come home at the end of the day and you need to get that kind of break. Working on sort of a diorama or kind of customizing a figure is really just the thing that you just kind of need it. It's just for your soul. And I've just always found that that's something that kind of brings me back creatively to a place that that I feel good in. So,
Very cool.
Yeah, I it's kind of funny. Like one of the questions about when did you start is, I don't know if you remember. This is right around the time, John, we met, but Fruit Loops had like a send away for Han Solo in the Stormtrooper disguise, and I had collected Star Wars when I was a kid, but they were just bought for me, right? I was a kid, so I was a freshman in college, and there was that kind of send away, and that was pretty much it. Like the floodgates were open, and from then on, it was collecting,
Yeah. I mean, to your point, I think for so many of us of our generation, the gateway figure was the 3 3/4 inch Kenner Star Wars figures. Mike, being of a certain age for you, was probably Migos, right?
No.
No, interesting.
No, in my case, it was 1984.
Oh, wow.
And I was a Transformer collector over the decades, only Transformers. So I did 84 to 86. So I was Gen 1 was my jam. I got out for a number of years, got back in around the early 2000s it was the Armada with the minicon. It was Beast Wars, Beast Machines. And then it moved into that whole era. Got out again, got back in when Hasbro went, hey, we're re-engineering the old combiners from 86.
Right.
Got in for those couple of lines, got back out, and now I'm pretty much out.
Right.
But now it's mostly
that. We'll get we'll get to that.
Yep.
So it's funny. So it's like, so when we were kids, there was this company called Mego. And Mego, everybody knows Mego. I think Wizard magazine with their Twisted Toy Fair Theater, later co-opted by Robot Chicken, by those guys. Same guys mostly, plus Seth Green. But yeah, so the Mego, they had the cloth bodysuit there. Each one had sculpted heads. This was the defining toy for definitely a certain generation, your post 12-inch G.I. Joe, right? This is what a lot of folks grew up with until 1978, actually. 77 was the movie.
After the early bird kit.
But yes, and again, what a great scam.
Yeah.
We don't have the toys ready, but we know
Yeah.
you're hot on this thing. So we're gonna sell you a box. The promise of figure.
It was like the first Kickstarter, right?
Yeah, right. And again, it's a trend that, what I guess the company that has now sort of morphed into Kenner does to this day. But anyway, so these 3 3/4-inch figures really kind of changed the game. And it's funny, Mike, to your point about Transformers. So for me at that point, it was Transformers or G.I. Joe. And I went G.I. Joe because the Transformers also, that those were a little more pricier than your standard 3 3/4-inch action figure, plus G.I. Joe had the comic behind it, which I always I did watch the cartoon as a kid, but my fidelity, my love was to the comic, right?
John, G.I. Joe could also fit in all your Star Wars vehicles.
And your G.I. Joe, except only for like still shots. Playability, it doesn't match, and that was the always thing with the Star Wars, with the limited articulation that they had. But at that point, you were just like, it's Han Solo, it's Boba Fett, One of the things I always loved about Mego, and I kind of want to touch about this, is the body stocking, right? And for no matter the character, they always had a body stocking. So even if it was somebody who had a sort of, with like the Thing, right? They didn't just build a new buck for Thing. They just had an orange rock printed body stocking on the Thing. One of my favorites is Tarzan. Tarzan, they went with the over-the-shoulder loincloth, but instead of just putting that on a bare buck, it was a flesh-colored body stocking with this separate loincloth on top of it. There's only two Megos that I could think of that really honored that fidelity, right? Of not going full body stocking. So one, obviously the Hulk. I think every kid had that Hulk Mego at some point with the torn pants, and then he actually made a bigger buck and did it in green, and that was like huge cost, for Mego there, and then the other guy, which was one of my grail items for a very long time. His knee is a little wonky, but is the Conan.
Oh,
the
nice.
Mego Conan. I actually have the box for this one too, with the Toys R Us price sticker on it. And this, first of all, the hair, but this is perfect. This is the only other one I could think of besides Hulk where they were like, you know what? It's freaking Conan. We're no body stocking for this guy, right? So that is just one of my absolute favorite things.
That hair is on point.
The hair is on point. It's like,
it's weird. Give him a guitar and he'd be perfect. Right?
It still has I don't know if they sprayed it with something like at the time, but like it's very stiff. Like I don't, but that was a grail item for a long time, and that was a very nice gift from my bosses at the Joker's Child. It was just like, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So for a long time, 3 3/4 inches the rage. And then we get, and so we had in the mid 80s, because now we're going to get into the realm of superheroes a little bit, because I think we all have a love for that. We got into you had these two competing toy lines at the time. You had Mattel's Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars figures, and then you had Kenner's DC Superpowers figures. And the Superpowers figures were not to scale with the Secret Wars. I think the Superpowers figures were like just a hair under 4, and the Secret Wars were just a hair over 4. But boy, as a kid who loved those characters, those comics, that was action figure mana back then. And you think it would never get better. And now we're in the age of the last 20 years of the 6-inch and now 7-inch figure is your standard. You still get your 3 3/4 inch with Star Wars. The vintage collection is fantastic because it adds all this detail with heavy articulation. So for a Star Wars collector, it's fantastic, because one of the reasons with the smaller scale is room for vehicles, right?
Yeah, it's world building.
Yeah, and world building. And I could tell you've got some vehicles back there, right to either side of you. You're being flanked.
Right, a couple, yeah.
Yeah. So to do those in a 6-inch scale would be, it's a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, but again, you know, you as a kid, you had those great things. The GI Joe USS Flag aircraft carrier was a great thing. The Transformers again, Mike, those were huge. Those were great. So at this point, so yeah, when we got to the 6-inch, it was really with Toy Biz, changing the game with their Marvel Legends line. When Toy Biz went away, Hasbro picked up the Marvel Legends, Marvel figure license, continued Marvel Legends, had a real wonky start, and then kind of hit a pattern that has served them well up until a point. And then
I think it was that weird Emma Frost, right? That sort of in their first, and Hasbro's first line.
Yeah, or that Captain America that like just had that weird buck, like just too wide. It was just, there was a lot of wonky things in those first couple Hasbro waves. Then they nailed it to the point of over repetition of the same buck body base and just using paint apps, right? And now, and then you also had Mattel was doing the DC Classics, which was great. Another 6-inch scale. You could make your DC Marvel characters line up. And then they let the license lapse, and Todd McFarlane of Spawn fame, and has his own toy line that started as Todd Toys and then became just McFarlane Toys. And for a very long time were just plastic statues, which is funny because now they're going back to that. But they picked up the DC license and they now are doing the DC 7-inch scale, which is great. Those figures are great. Scale is a loose term, especially within McFarlane, because there are figures within lines that are just not to scale. So first, before I get to Mike, I want to kind of touch back with Ed. The repaint that I was talking about was this is what's fun with the video. This guy that you sent me last year, right? And you bought a bunch of these for the express purpose of repainting one.
I bought 3. I got 3. I sent one to you. Yes, I absolutely did. Look, first of all, I will say that like the yellow, the yellow emblem, yellow bat, blue and gray Batman is my favorite Batman, right? Yes. Like it's like when I think of Batman, there's that, and then there's kind of the gray and the black, basically, but very, very kind of similar profiles. And so I was so excited with, like, there was a few like misses, right? Like McFarlane sort of had a yellow and blue and gray one, and it was like kind of wonky proportions. It was like a new 52 or something that was repainted, or
so their first 2 figures were the Action Comics 1000 Superman, which is the best Superman figure they've ever done.
Still the one that I have in my lineup. Yeah.
Although the new release, now that they're leaning into the wired cloth capes, like the soft goods cape, that's pretty cool too. But there was also the Detective Comics 1000 or 1027 Batman. Yeah. And it was the black and gray, the main figure, black and gray, with the no oval. But then they did a variant on that, and it was the blue and gray. But it's weird because they just cut out around the giant bat that had no and just popped in this piece of plastic, and it doesn't sit right in the I have one, it doesn't sit right in the chest. So weird stuff. They do strange stuff like that. Like they did quick tangent, they did a Bizarro Bat Zorro 2-pack, right? And they use the body, they reuse bodies almost without care sometimes. So they reuse the Dark Knight Returns Batman body with the Dark Knight Returns Superman body, these big beefy Frank Miller style bodies. And it was very easy for them to pull out the Superman chest emblem and put in a reverse, right? That was clean. The head sculpts, the Ed McGuinness style head sculpts, they're nailing the artist style stuff, right? So their Ed McGuinness head sculpts were on point. But for Batman, they just didn't even div it out. They just took the upside down bat logo and slapped it on the existing Dark Knight Returns chest emblem. And it's just like, when you see something like that, you just can't unsee it, you know? So anyway, so you went and you repainted that, this great blue and gray with a darker gray wash and a black. And like literally the day you finished, they released that as a figure.
Yep. It was so that happens, right? Like you sort of, that's sort of the risk sometimes with customizing, is you're like, all right, you know what, I'm just gonna do this, and who knows if they're gonna ever get around to it. And you know, it's sort of one of those jokes in the customizing world that like the best way to get the company to make something is to customize it yourself, because then they're going to like announce it right away, right? But sometimes it works for your favor. So I did Power Girl, a few years ago, right? And I knew that I was like, they were going to do Power Girl eventually, and my wife had even sewn like a tiny little cape for it, and then let me know that that was the last little cape she was ever going to make. But and I really love it. It's actually like, it's a little bit funny because I use the same head as the Supergirl from the DC TV series, right? So it was the DC Collectibles Supergirl.
Melissa Benoist,
and then it looks great. Like they look completely different, but they look really similar, which is kind of what you want for a Power Girl and a Supergirl, right? And I recently saw like McFarlane, sent, released some pictures of theirs. It looks good, but I'm still like, I like mine better. So it's like, so sometimes it works out where you're like, no, I have the one that I want. And that's
nice.
I mean, there's also Vintage Collection when they did like the Jabba's, kind of throne room piece, right? And it's really cool. If I didn't have one that I was thrilled with, I'd be psyched for it. I even got one, and I'll give it to my son. But I definitely look at it and I'm like, they got that wrong. So you definitely notice like what happens from kind of like, from things being released. You see the corners that get cut, and so bringing that customizing into your collection allows you to kind of bring some of the love and care that you would want, and ways to kind of make it your own. But it definitely does happen where you sort of work on something and then they announce it right after you're done.
Yeah, I don't customize. I just like, I like head swap. So I have that this is the Mattel DC Classics Superpowers re-release of the base Superman, this time with a soft goods cape. And then I took a Brandon Routh head from the Atom figure from the Mattel's DC multiverse line, and just popped it on that guy. So I do head swaps. That's like the extent of it. What I would want to do is I would want to get the black and gray, right, of this. And then I have the first appearance, right? The Detective 27, but with the purple gloves. I want to get the blue, the one with the blue highlights, right? With the blue gloves. Have you seen that variant? Because that has a double lined cape, and it's the blue on the inside of the cape with the black on the outside. So I want to do that and just swap that cape onto the black and gray version of that Nightfall Batman. And I think that would be sharp. And I think that if I could put the money down and do that, and the time to do that, never will. But if I do, aside from the Norm Brayfogle Batman figure that they put out, which is I think a McFarlane store exclusive, I think I'd be done. Because I have a thing. You guys have seen the movie Conspiracy Theory, right? With Mel Gibson, Richard Donner directed it. He's compelled to whenever he's in a bookstore to buy Catcher in the Rye. Like he has this compulsion. It's part of that programming. That's me with Batman figures. It's like I see a bat. It's like, ooh, she's got a new hat, right? Malibu Stacy has a new hat. Like, oh, it's different because it's this artist, right? Like, I don't care. Like, I'll draw the line at like orange highlights and things that take him so far out of the realm of Batman. I'll draw the line there. But that is definitely a compulsion of mine. That is the number one that I have the most variants of. Iron Man you could justify because it's different armors. Superman, it's very easy to pass on some Superman figures because they don't look good at all. But yeah, that's
Some of
my.
the ones on the wall. There are some nice ones that I
There have been some nice ones, and I want to kind of get to your wall here. So right now, as far as your action figure lines, it is McFarlane, Justice League.
correct.
So
Most there's a few others,
yeah,
and
but
then I do Marvel Legends, but Avengers.
Avengers, and you have a strict no doubles rule, but you've bent a couple times.
It's bent. It's been bent.
Right now, Todd is very happy to hear that. All right.
Well, I did for McFarlane. I have some multiples. You know, I have a few Batmans, a few Supermans. I got very lucky at one point, and you know, they released the '90s Blue Electrical Superman, and in the travels, I found the red platinum. So you had to, you know, that's part of the storyline. Marvel wise, I have a few. Most of them are single offs, but I have a few comic book windows that I use to kind of say, okay, this is where I can pull from. The only other one was I bought an Iron Man, and somebody went, yeah, you got to now make a Hall of Iron. So now I have a Hall of Iron.
I have a Hall of Iron in the 6-inch.
Yes.
And the 3 3/4 inch from 10 years back when they were trying to bring 3 3/4 inch back. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but the other thing between you guys and me is mine are all sealed.
Yeah.
We were talking about that before.
Yeah.
Earlier
that's
today.
a problem.
And over there. So part of it comes from the fact that many, many years ago, early 2000, around 2000, 2001, I had a gig for about a year and a half doing toy packaging in Central Jersey, North Central Jersey. And I was handling the licensing stuff. So it was like Barbie and Hot Wheels and X-Men Evolution, if you remember that cartoon. So it was building all that kind of stuff. So I got kind of hooked on packaging. And so I like packaging. My Transformers for a long time, I kept the packaging where they were in box, and now it's just turned to sealed. I'm one of those weird guys.
I'm a packaging nerd when it comes to Blu-ray DVD box sets or CD box sets, like the Clash box set that's like an old beatbox, like old beatbox stereo, the Star Trek 50th anniversary one where it's like the transporter thing with the sleeve. Like I love that type of packaging. I appreciate, so with McFarlane, I appreciate where it is a type of packaging where you can take the figure out without damaging the packaging. You do, you got to get
to cut the tape, but
you can cut the tape. You got to work around or cut the plastic things in there, which I believe Ed and our friend of the show, friend in life, for all of us, Matt Demick, I think you guys are responsible for that when they started doing that with the Star Wars figures. So in response to a lot of shenanigans. But yeah, so that but you can do it, before DC Direct, DC Collectibles went under, and then Todd brought it back as a brand. You could do that as well, like their artist series and things like that. Hasbro makes it difficult because, well, so their old Marvel Legends, their open window box Marvel Legends, yes, you could do that with, right? But they have, but after the debacle of the no window box, right, for a couple of years, the cost-cutting method that caused their prices on toys to double inside of 2 years. And the big complaint, and this is something I picked up. So there, I mentioned to you guys, there's this YouTube channel called Spector Creative. No relation to Mike Spector, but this is a guy, Scott Knightlick, who used to work for Mattel. He worked on the He-Man classics, the DC classics.
He did the DC Universe classics.
Yeah. Not the first couple ways, but through the end. We saw it through to the end. Big. He's got hundreds of videos just on the Star Wars 3 3/4 inch, starting with Power of the Force 2, the 96 or mid 90s relaunch. He had a great point about the debacle with the Marvel Legends packaging, the windowless packaging that Hasbro was doing. He said the psychology of the customer, most people buying toys or moms buying toys for their kids. Psychology of the customer is if they see something with a closed box, they think it's a game or a puzzle. because they can't see that it's an action figure. Because the psychology is you that window box is there, so you see what you're getting. The other issue that they were having was people were just getting the good figures, taking them out, putting in another figure of the equal weight, like Indiana Jones with the same, and then returning it. So, you know, you're like, oh, this is a great Spider-Man figure. And it's like, what? And the quality control, there was a lot of quality control problems because no one could really, I saw some guy unbox their Amazing Fantasy 15 Spider-Man. A guy unbox, pulls it out of the box, and there's like no paint on one half of the figure, you know, like, so I love that you're a packaging nerd, Mike, and I totally respect that, and I get that, because now the big thing with Hasbro and their Marvel Legends line is the retro packaging.
Correct.
They're taking the old animated design, those blister cards, putting the bubble on, and those you really can't. You can't.
And they are hanging on the wall
Yeah.
here on the opposite side. So it runs McFarlane here. I mean, this is, like I said, the large room. This is my studio. So this is all the McFarlane side. On the other side of the studio, I was debating about sitting there, but there's a window right in the middle, is all of my boxed Avengers. So again, on the card, hang on the wall, sealed, untouched, including Giant Man. I have the foot.
You did the HasLab,
and you put him back in the box.
I put it back in the box, and it's in the cardboard box, stuck in the corner, along with a bunch of other non-Avenger. And that has been, which I think I explained this to Ed, and I find it hysterical. I have to find the justification from when Hasbro goes, hey, we're doing this figure. I have to research, and I will type in the keyword of whatever the character is and Avengers, and see if it comes up with a cover. So last year, last year they did a pre-order for Dragon Man. It's like a 10-inch figure for, and so I did some poking around, and it's like Avengers 53 or 49, right around the mid 50s or so. Dragon Man was there. I was like, okay, I can order it. The other one is the X-Men 97 Sentinel that's coming out. That's 22 inches tall. Avengers 1.
Those Sentinels are so cool. I'm so glad I don't collect 6-inch, because that would be it.
Well, that being said, Avengers 103, sir, the Avengers fight a Sentinel, and I went,
that's part of the milieu.
And so that should be here some point this year.
And so Ed, you do not do 6-inch. You really just do the 7-inch scale.
It's part masochism and then part maybe protectionism, like, because, you know, so obviously the DC stuff that I collect is, you know, when McFarlane took over, I was able to put together a DC collection. Before that,
because also the DC Direct and DC collectible stuff was larger than 6-inch, wasn't always true 7-inch. And then they even went a little shorter towards the end with some weird stuff. But,
They sort of tried to get into the 6-inch game, and then they sort of went out of business. But I you know, for a long time, looking at the DC stuff, aside from the occasional DC collectibles thing, I sort of felt like the kids at the beginning of Christmas Story, looking in the window, like just checking everything out. Like I've just sort of enjoyed it from afar, like I do with Marvel Legends, right? So looking at like the Sentinel, apparently the new Sentinel, Galactus, all of those, like, they're awesome. I just don't collect that line because I don't collect that scale, right? The G.I. Joe classified stuff, super cool. Even, you know, Star Wars Black Series, I am definitely a 1/18, you know, a 3 3/4 inch purist, and I'm never going to do Black Series, but man, I am so jealous sometimes of the stuff that they get. It's just, you know, it's, you know, you sort of like look at that, you're like, oh, but they don't get the vehicles. So, but
I actually have 2 of the 6-inch sales Star Wars, and again, that's a can of worms, because I got these 2, and I'm like, oh, I could get a Han. If I get a Han, I gotta get a Chewie, you know. But I opted. I always wanted a really good 6-inch Vader. So from like the 10, you know, when they first started doing the Black Series, I got the one with the removable helmet, right? So I got that Vader. And then, Mike, to your point, packaging nerd, there was a Luke Skywalker, but in the ceremony garb from the end of A New Hope. with that box that was the cover from the John Cass, the late great John Cassidy first issue of the Star Wars comic. And it came with all this. I love the extra stuff you get with figures too. And again, it's a great box that you could just slide the figure out without, you know, damaging the box or anything like that. So those are the two I had, and I you know, again, I got to stop there. One of the things is space, you know, besides money, right? But space is always a big thing too. So it is good to have a curated collection.
Like 100%. Think about 10 stormtroopers in 3 3/4 inch versus 10. Like, you can't probably see it, but behind me there is a ton of stormtroopers on one of the shelves. If they were 6-inch, I would have like 5 of them, and that would be it. You know, so you know you can fit so many more at the smaller scale, that kind of world building scale. So yeah, space for Star Wars, you need those small for ships, but also just for some of the legions you have to kind of put together.
Right, right.
The other interesting thing is, John,
yeah,
you guys have both been doing it for a long time. I didn't start doing this until 2002 or 22.
wow. So this is all just within the 2 years.
Within the last 3 years.
3
Yeah,
years,
I've been doing it that way, which in my case, the gateway drug is behind me, is the Target exclusive Ultraman. I am a massive fan of the Earth 3 Crime Syndicate.
Right.
To the point where I have Justice League 29 and 30 from 1964,
Very cool.
which are the first appearances of them.
Yeah.
And so I started with that, and I showed my wife, and I'm like, it's Ultraman Earth 3. It's so cool. And so I had to start, and that's where it all.
That was the opening.
And that was the gateway, was that figure.
And that had that was the Build-A-Figure, was the Starro, right?
Right.
And so that's the other thing, the Build-A-Figure. What a great scam. What a great way to buy like 2 to 3 figures you don't need just because you need the Hulkbuster Iron Man, you know? So that's a great thing that they did to get our attention there. Mike, I was going to say, as a packaging nerd, I'm surprised you are not into the Mezco 112 collective at all.
Okay, I can answer that. In my case, what happened was, and I was telling Ed the story actually today. So one of the other fans, eras that kind of was fun for me was the early 90s, when before you guys came into school, I had graduated, which was 93, which was Nightfall, and it was the death of Superman. And it was the reign of Superman. And so I was a big fan of the Superman side of that story, and was a very big fan of Hank Henshaw, the Cyborg Superman. And so McFarlane was like, we're doing Cyborg Superman. And I'm like, in Coast City, the whole 9 yards, I'm ready. And they went, it's New 52.
Cyborg Superman.
And so I poked around and found, and what works for me was I found Mafex.
Yes.
Liking some of the Mafex. Nightfall, Reign of Superman. I have Hush Superman and Batman Blue, the X-Force. And so a few of those I've been picking up. Right. But Mezco doesn't work for me. The fabric, which is the thing you like from Mego, it doesn't, it doesn't work for me. So, and because of that, I have no interest in any of it.
So I have a few examples here, because yes, that is one of the things I do love. So first and foremost, here's Superman. The head sculpt is such a great John Byrne Superman. The wired cape, just the shine on this book is great, but you got to be careful when you touch it, because it pulls the threads will pull.
And that was one of the because one of the things I saw that was great, that I really liked, but I was like, because of the fabric issue, was Recovery Suit Superman from
right.
The 5, where it's basically Superman from Convergence. So you have him with the beard and the short hair. And you also have him as Solar Suit Superman from the end of Reign of Superman.
And then, so the cool thing about that Superman is it comes in this awesome tin, right? And this tin is, again, designed so you can you know, these multi-level trays. You get a whole bunch of stuff. Like this is one of the things about the Mezco stuff that I really enjoy. There's a light up feature for the eyes. But these are designed for you to be able to pull the trays out, check these figures out, put them back if you want. Like I said, you know, and then there's also just your basic box, the Spider-Man. I mean, look, where else are you going to get a Spider-Man with the parachute? I don't know if you can see that behind me there, but
Yep.
Spider-Man with the spider web parachute. I mean, that's great. Their Batman figure, one of my favorite Batman figures. This is they did 3 of these. There was like the Ascending Knight, the Sovereign Knight, and Old Man Knight, or whatever.
Yeah.
And this is the middle piece. This is your basic good Batman. Now they are a 6-inch scale. That is what the 112 is. And they're not perfect either, but they do a really good job, you know, of someone that said making great head sculpts for 7-inch scale figures. so you can always bear that in mind.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Now, one of my favorites, though, I only have 4 of these Mezcos, but one of my favorites before we kind of start to wrap things up here is this Frazetta Conan. And this is gorgeous. And so again, you can get like
that has the cool like ring mail on it and everything too.
Yep, right on the front there. Yeah. And now they did
awesome.
They did do another one, Conan the Conqueror, which is cool because he's got a lot more stuff. This comes with a ton of stuff, but he's got the Buscema blue shirt, you know, like that. But this classic Frazetta, I mean, this is the Conan that I remember, you know, like that painting that they use as the base there.
Oh,
you know, that
absolutely.
Classic. Yeah. So, and it has the alternate head is literally that face. I mean, it's such a great figure. And again, Mike, you know, you don't get the body stocking. You get like a nice,
but
nice
you know what it is?
there.
It's something that definitely think about, which is fitting for all of us, which is the engineering from 20 years ago for now. Is such a game changer.
I mean, it's great.
How manufacturing and how stuff is designed and all that stuff, that it really is one of the reasons why I kind of got into it, was the figure quality has gotten so incredible, even for
so much better.
You know, the lower end figures that you know, the McFarlane stuff is $20 a pop, and you know, the styling of it, the you know, some of the accessories, the figures themselves really are amazingly well done.
And look, they don't always knock it out of the park. I think there's an overuse of the diaper on characters that don't have, you know, trunks. I think that some of their paint variations are a little ridiculous. Their reuse of stuff of body, like we talked about before, their reuse of body types, you know, but boy, when they nail it, they do nail it. And kudos to him for making the base figure a $19.99 retail. If it's got a Build-A-Figure piece, he did jump that to $24.99. Your collector series now is a $29.99, and then your McFarlane web exclusives are you're hitting like $39.99, $49.99. But for a parent going in to buy a toy for a kid, they get a nice big toy that can take a beating, but looks great. And for $20, whereas again, your 6-inch Marvel Legends from Hasbro is pushing $27 for just a 6-inch figure with a couple extra accessories. Good point. You know, the early Toy Biz, like the early Toy Biz stuff, the early Marvel Legends. I mean, this is a great Spider-Man figure. So much posability, except right there in the shoulder, right? There's no shoulder there.
Right.
Hasbro has perfected that. I mean, you can even do like back reaching, your butterfly joint
on the back.
And if you notice, you know, the old Toy Biz Marvel Legends, they're very short. They're very tiny. You know, that Daredevil they did looks
one of the armor. I have one of the Iron Mans, which was, it wasn't Silver Centurion. It was the one after that, where they had it where the older version, which was really nice, but doesn't have ankle tilts and whatnot. It's like a half an inch short. It's really teeny tiny.
Yeah, I know.
The newer ones has much more better engineering, but it's also a little more cartoony.
And because the boots, because I have that exactly what you're talking about, and the boots on that are like so bulbousy,
big and
round.
chunky, but
And that's a head swap I would want to make, but I think those are different pegs.
yeah,
That's
it's
a head
totally
swap you
different
can't quite
figure.
do.
So yeah, that one came off. That actually came off the wall and got replaced with the other guy.
So the last thing I kind of want to talk about a little bit for the last few minutes we have here is preferred method of toy buying, because I'm a big fan of the hunt. I'm a big fan of going to the big, and even though I work at retail at a comic shop that sells toys, we don't get everything. And sometimes it's also just that fun of walking into a store, going to a big box store or even a small toy store, and just finding that thing. Like there was one day where I didn't even know I was looking for it. And I'm walking in and just sitting there right on the shelf. Just like not even on a peg, just flat on the shelf. The classic Martian Manhunter variant. Because the other one they did was the new 52 design. Gorgeous, great figure. I was so happy to just randomly spot it, but a little short. Yeah, again, not in scale to some of the other stuff.
Yeah, but you can't, you have to kind of let that go because
if he's in the box, you don't notice it, right?
Or because I do,
or on a flight stand.
On the wall, exactly.
Like I'll stage like battle, like not like play battles, but I'll like set him up in battles or like the group shot. And for the group shot, he'll always be in the back on a riser, on an apple box. So he's like the Tom Cruise of my action figures. Or the Cyclops from the X-Men movies, that guy who they had to make occasionally look taller than Hugh. So so that's a big thing for me. Because it's frustrating with toys. There's no solid release date unless you're ordering them online. But then they don't always hit that ship date, right? So toys could show up wherever, whenever. I know you guys do a lot of stuff online, like your you do the HasLab and for Star Wars, and Mike, you did it for the Giant Man. Do you guys still go on the hunt? Do you just go walking into a store? Another great thing, really quick, that happened to me fairly recently was I was like, I'm going to the store. And I'm going for the express purpose of finding that 0 hour Hawkman, because I love Hawkman, and I actually like that kind of design. And boom, there it was, just one right on the shelf, right on the peg. I was like, that was great. I've tried it with the question a few times, but I haven't been able to nail it down.
So, in my case, my wife always jokes about how the early part of my dating with her involved being in parking lots of Toys R Us's and Walmart and Target that I used to do the hunt. Now, no, it's I'll check my local Target or I'll check a couple places around, but mostly for me it's online. It's just the answer became at this point at my age is, what is your time worth? Worth running around to try to maybe. No, it's just easier to find it online, pre-order it when you can. Odds are if you find it and you don't grab it when you do find it, you'll never find it again. So I've done, I've gotten lucky on occasion and grabbed stuff because I knew, but in some cases, no, most of the time it's just, if it's on the shelf when we're there, great. If not, I'll pre-order it. It's a small price to pay for the stress.
What about you, Ed?
So I think for me, I've had conversations with people about this. I think that there's sort of the hunt, and then there's the have, and then there's the kind of the what you do with it, right? And I think I used to like going on the hunt and, kind of checking out the stores and stuff like that. I will say my Target allegedly has Star Wars at it. The only thing I hunt maybe is like NECA stuff, because I tend to find that more than any sort of Star Wars stuff.
And they're all over the place. They used to be exclusive to like small shops, and now they're all over the big box stores.
Yeah. I would say that a lot of my energy has shifted from the hunt to the customizing, right? So I want to have what I'm going to work with, right? So my energy's here. It's not so much in the chasing it down thing, right?
Right on.
But that said, like I still love walking. I don't like walking around Target, right? I don't like walking around Walmart. But I like going to a comic book shop and like walking around and like, talking with other collectors and kind of looking through what they have there. And, so that I enjoy. And, if it's something that I think is going to be, is going to go really fast, then I'm just going to pre-order it. If it's something that I'm like, oh, I could have it or not, then, you know, I'll kind of see if I find it in the shop and it's something I can do with my kids, right?
Yeah. It used to, yeah. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. I had another friend named Ed who used his kid as an excuse to buy toys.
Yes.
Now, you know,
Perfect.
so I think we're gonna start to wrap it up, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I just got one thing I just want to talk about, like for my habit for toys really quick before we say our goodbyes. For me, I used to get very disappointed if I would go and not find something that I want. And now these days, I'm like relieved. I'm relieved when I go and I don't have anything, right? And there's nothing there for me to buy. But I still, you know, again, if there's that one thing that it's like, oh, I'm gonna get that. I gotta get that. It's meant to be that I'm there. After my dad died, my catharsis was to go to Toys R Us on my lunch break from the vet hospital every day on that hour and look around. And again, the other thing that I would always do is I'm that guy that's looking at 3 or 4 different figures for the best paint app, right?
Yeah.
Which again, I've been disappointed when I ordered online when I get something that doesn't have a great paint app, and I'm like, you know, so there's things like that. But so like one of the things that I love that I hold on to, as much as the movie was a disappointment, were the Batman v Superman figures, right, from the Mattel DC multiverse, because that represents a period of my life where that was something that helped get me through. And I think that's what it is with pop culture, whether it's our comics or movies or television shows or music or the action figures. These are things that help get us through tough times. And they are touchstones to things that we love. And so I always say if it makes you happy, then do it. But again, don't put yourself in debt over it. Enjoy what you have. It's fun to go on the chase, but it's always not necessary, right? You got to know when to say everything in moderation, even moderation, right? So, but boy, I love it. I love being a man child. I love being an adult kid, going to the toy store. Look at that. That's good, but that's better on that one, and deciding which is the best figure and being like, all right, well, look, if it's not perfect, fool myself into thinking someday I'll do a repaint on it on my own. But what do you know?
You might, John.
I might.
Alas, gentlemen, we're out of time.
All right.
Thank you. I enjoyed your conversation very much today. I collect action figures. My wife collects action figures. So a lot of the things that you said were of great interest to me. How can people get in contact with you guys?
I'm on Instagram. My name is Burnt Out Brushes, hence I'm here. As I said, it's just a portfolio. So it's on there if you want to check out what I've been working on.
Yep. Same for mine. Username is Mr. Skeezler. So yeah, definitely connect with me.
All right, guys, thank you so much for being here. Hercules, again, thank you very much. I guess we're going to put this on YouTube at some point. Folks, if you want to, what's up?
Cool.
It'll be posted tomorrow. I'll send you the link. I've been having difficulty with Facebook recently, so I don't know what's going on with it. So well, I'll just send you the link.
And then, you email me that and I'll put that on my Facebook page. But again, yes, and if you want to reach out to me, I'm John Carl Pepe on Facebook. My email is johncarlpepe@hotmail.com. Or if you're ever in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, come on out to the Joker's Child Comic Shop, because that's where I sling comics and action figures. Ed, Michael, Hercules, thank you. Happy New Year. Have a wonderful night. We'll see you all in a month.
Happy New Year to everybody. Good night. Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.